All right, back here on our program. Daniel Jeremiah is about to join us here on the program. Screw it. Let's get him up here right now. What's up, DJ? You there?
Yeah, I got you. What's going on, Rich?
I'm good. Your radio audience is returning shortly. So was there really another dress shirt in that zip up just in case a dog peed on you, or was it just there just for effect? Was there really another shirt in case that happened?
Oh, it was there for a reason. And I'll be honest with you. You mentioned how I did not hold the puppies this year as long as last year.
Come on now.
Well, when I held this puppy this year, my hand was got a little wet. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is happening again. So I kind of kept away from the shirt and then handed it back to the nice lady. And then I didn't say anything, but then she said, hey, just, we've been holding these puppies for so long. Our hands have gotten really sweaty. So the dog might have been a little wet. But I'm like, you know what? We're not going to take that chance. We're not going to take that chance.
So, it's usually 4 points of pressure for a dog, Daniel. You know what I mean? Like, so you're saying, what was it, 2 points? What was it? Like, seriously?
It was very loose, like how you would see a pitcher with big hands hold the baseball, like just like right here, this part of the ball. I was not trying to get that ball like into the palm of my hand. Same with the puppy. That was my philosophy.
I know you were on with Susie and Amy on What the Football last week. Did your wife want you to take one of these dogs home like Susie did for me last year?
So I'll be honest with you. Every draft is different. And we felt like the talent at the puppies in Kansas City was a little better than the Detroit puppies.
Okay.
So everything's an evaluation, Rich.
Everything's an evaluation?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, just because you passed on Mahomes the year before doesn't mean you should take Jake Locker the next year.
Okay.
You got to look at each draft class individually.
But if you're like Sean Payton, you never forget it and you draft Bo Nix years later. So that's the narrative. Got it. Very good. Daniel Jeremiah is here, back on the Rich Eisen Show radio network. I'm sitting at the Rich Eisen Show desk, furnished by Grainger, with supplies and solutions for every industry. Grainger has the right product for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Daniel Jeremiah has stopped by, and from the NFL Network and the Move the Sticks pod. DJ, I got to be honest with you. I started the show by still talking about Penix in Atlanta. I know that's going to lead to some eye rolling. I already seen some tweets, people saying that I'm yelling the loudest. I don't yell. No, I don't yell about this sort of thing. I just still I'm head scratching over this, but I will place in front of you, which is the response that Peter Schrager forwarded on our draft set, and that Chris Brockman just forwarded again, is that the QB purgatory is the worst thing, and if you can stay out of it for 10, 15 years, go for it. And I guess they decided to use draft capital after signing somebody for $100 million guaranteed is the best way to do that.
So here's where, and this is, I was actually looking at this because we've got our own podcast later today, and I was like, all the different layers to this thing, you could literally, I know you're capable of doing it, Rich. You could do a 30-minute conversation with just yourself and list out all the different angles and arguments in place here. This is where I come down on it. To me, I think there's a financial component to it that hasn't been discussed at all in terms of how do you maximize the value of your roster. One of the reasons we had talked about, with Brock Bowers and where he might go in the draft, it was hard to justify him going to a team that's already paid their quarterback, because once you've paid the quarterback, you have to maximize all your other dollars because they eat up such a big chunk of your cap. So if we look at where the Atlanta Falcons are, and you look at other needs on their roster, it's not just, we needed a pass rusher, we could have taken a pass rusher there. It's what is it going to cost for you to get that position out on the free market and free agency? And how much savings are you getting by taking one there in the top 10? So you're getting a good player at a position of need, but you're also maximizing your limited resources because you've already paid the quarterback. So that's the way to maximize how you build out your roster. Now, one of the arguments I've heard, which I'd love to hear Brockman's explanation on this, because this is how I've heard this explained. We're a good team with Kirk Cousins, and we don't think we'll ever be picking up there at the top of the draft again. So we're going to take the quarterback now, assuming we're never going to be up there, but also with the explanation that we don't want to have a down year because we want to go from one quarterback to the next, and then we don't have that down year. And I sit here and go, well, wait a second. If that is what you're saying, then Kirk Cousins plays well. And then once Kirk Cousins' play takes a dip, then you would be picking up there if you didn't have Penix, and then you would be able to solve your quarterback situation at that point in time. So those two pieces of information don't make any sense to me. I just look at it as you have a team that's ready to win. You've got a quarterback that's ready to go out there right now. I also talk about the financial side. To me, there's also the personal side, which is don't compare this to Green Bay. It is apples to oranges. There is equity built up with Rodgers and Favre inside their city, inside their fan base, inside their locker room, that the first time something went wrong, hey, this guy's already won us a Lombardi trophy. Like, there's Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers aren't going to press. Kirk Cousins has no equity in that stadium, no equity with his teammates, no equity in that city. The first poor throw he has there, everybody in the stadium is going to be clamoring for his backup. So what I'm saying is that everybody's assuming this is just this smooth, great 2 years of Kirk Cousins, and then we go smoothly on to Michael Penix. This could be, it could end up being a disaster on the other side of it. So that's where kind of I am on everything.
So and then in terms of what they could have done otherwise with 8th overall, guys on the board or trading down.
You had your choice. You could go out there and get, Dallas Turner, who's a big time edge rusher. If you were comfortable with Latu's medicals, he's was the most polished pass rusher. You had Murphy there as well. I mean, look, I had Penix as my 34th player. So I like Michael Penix, but I do believe there are Michael Penixes that come along, on a yearly basis. So that was where I was. I had lobbied for the Raiders to consider him at 13 because I could make the case that Michael Penix, even though he's my 34th player, is more valuable and is a better, more bigger talent than what they have at the position. I can't make that argument when you've got Kirk Cousins on there, who, when you talk to Kevin O'Connell, said, look, if this guy stays healthy last year, he firmly believes he would have been the MVP of the league with the start he was off to there. So I didn't see it as such. Now, it's not. I like Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix is a good player. I think Michael Penix, if he goes to another spot, would have been ready to jump in there and play. I didn't fully understand the fit there, and I'm imagining that Kirk Cousins would have felt the same way.
Daniel Jeremiah here on the Rich Eisen Show. So your best guess on number of first-round quarterbacks that's going to wind up starting a game this fall? I know I asked you this on NFL Network, but I didn't last time you were on here because there were no draft choices selected. So what do you have? What do you think?
Well, I think in terms of starting a game is one question. And, look, it's a long season. So getting out there for a game, I think it's fair to say we see 5 or 6 of them get out there for a game. I would imagine if you're going to look at it where it is now, I would say if we start at the beginning, I think the first 2 guys are going to start from the jump and they get out there and they try and hopefully run out there for 17 games. I think Drake Maye, I think he does start this year. Maybe he doesn't start, the first 4 to 8 games, but I think you'll see him on the back half of the year. I don't think Michael Penix, as long as Kirk Cousins stays healthy, plays. I think, in my opinion, the plan in Minnesota, I know Kevin came on with us and said, hey, we're going to have competition. I believe the plan is that they would like to sit J.J. McCarthy and get Sam Darnold through the year. And then Bo Nix, I think he'll get the bulk of the starts there. Whether or not that's week 1, I think you'll see him for the bulk of the time. So really, Penix and McCarthy would be the 2. I don't think the plan would be for them, in a perfect world, for them to play. Where Drake Maye, I'd give him half the year.
Daniel Jeremiah here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so night 2 pick that jumps out at you, 2nd, 3rd rounder that you think, boy, that was a great one right there. What do you think?
I was curious to see right there at the top what Buffalo was going to do. They traded out of the first round, and it was just kind of looking at their needs at receiver, and I was kind of fascinated to see which style of receiver they would look at. Traded off of Xavier Worthy, much was made about that. They, give him to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I think I think Josh Allen is a big part of the guys they were looking for in terms of not only getting his opinion, but just trying to figure out what would work best with him. And they decided, hey, Keon Coleman, that big frame, the size, they decided to go a little bit size over speed there. And I think if you look at some of the, Josh Allen early in his career had protected the ball really well in the red zone. Then, turnovers the last couple of years, especially down there in the scoring area, got them in some trouble. So I think having a big bodied receiver like that can box guys out, that can kind of play above the rim, so to speak. Also, as well as, big 3rd down target. I thought it was fascinating that that's the style of receiver that they went for.
Okay. And then teams that you think really filled their need bucket in this draft, I don't have all 32 draft soup to nuts 1 through pick 7 or what have you, seventh rounder. But which team do you think, or teams, filled up their needs that they had to have in this draft?
I love what the Steelers did, man. They started last year when they went out and got Samalo in free agency. Then they drafted Broderick Jones, and then they come back in this draft, and you get Fatanu from Washington to play left tackle. I love the fit there, the athleticism, the physicality there at left tackle. They go out and get Zach Frazier, one of the top centers in the draft, who's plug and play, who just is, the wrestling background, the toughness, just kind of he oozes that he could be a Steeler. And then they go out and get McCormick from South Dakota State, who's a real strong, powerful guard. Like they have added a lot of young, talented resources to that offensive line. And then you also go out and get Roman Wilson, who you know well, Rich, who I thought was like a Jaden Reed type player. And we saw how quickly Jaden Reed transitioned with the Green Bay Packers, and they got him up and running, the success he had. So I feel like the Steelers, I wouldn't say that they lost their way a few years ago, but they went from being, one of the 2 or 3 most physical teams in the league, year after year after year, to kind of, it just was it didn't really have an identity offensively. And some of that, was blowback on Matt Canada, but I also don't think they kind of knew who they were. And I think right now they have established they are an offensive line with 2 tight ends, 2 big physical tight ends. They've got 2 backs. Deontay Johnson's gone. They are going to be kind of a ground and pound team. And they also add into the mix now with the 2 quarterbacks that they have. Even though Russ is a little bit older, he can take some of those free yards. And we know what Justin Fields can do with his legs. So I feel like the Steelers kind of got back to who they are in this draft.
Interesting. What did you make of the Chargers' first draft with Harbaugh and how it's remaking the team that you've seen right there in front of you from the radio booth last few years?
Well, I do feel somewhat vindicated because throughout the whole process, I've said they're going to take an offensive lineman at 5, and there was so much pushback saying there's no way. Keenan leaves, Mike Williams leaves, they have to go wide receiver. And I'm like, there's 2 things in play here. There's the depth of this receiver class, which they can tap into outside the first round. And then this is a flag in the ground draft, for Jim Harbaugh to establish what they're all about. He wasn't secretive about it, Rich, in an era where you get non-answers at, owners' meetings and the combine. All he's done is extol the virtues and the value of the offensive line from the moment he got hired in that press conference throughout every media availability that he's had. So, I didn't think should be too much of a shock, but everybody was still expecting to go receiver, and they go out and get the best offensive lineman in the draft, in my opinion. And Joe Alt, and then McConkey's there for him in the second round, who I loved, who's really a complete wide receiver. I think Justin Herbert's going to love working with him. And then they go out, and I feel like almost every team we talk about, I can tell you the Michigan guy that they got. But Junior Colson is someone who not only is one of the better linebackers in the draft, I got to believe he's the only linebacker in the draft that's going to be playing in the exact same defense he played in college. So with the same defensive coordinator, the same head coach. So he's set up to get on the field right away and make an impact there. So it was just to use a Harbaugh phrase, it was like kind of a meat and potatoes, maybe a little steak and milk. It was just exactly what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, the question is Alt's going to play right tackle, but that's not what made him the 5th overall pick in the draft, right?
Yeah,
so
but he also so he's young. He's like 21 years old.
Right.
He was a tight end until 2 years ago. So within 2 years, he went from never having played left tackle to being the 5th pick in the draft. And the transition from left tackle to right tackle is a lot less than the transition from tight end to left tackle. So the belief is this will not be that complicated. His dad having played in the league for a million years. He's grown up around it. He'll be able to put that together. He'll be able to figure it out. I think they're pretty confident about that. I do know that they, that Alt on his side of it wanted to know, like right after he was drafted, hey, what's the plan? Because I want to start repping, whatever I'm going to be doing. I want to start working on that right now. So I thought that was fascinating. One other thing, Rich, I wanted to hit you on while I'm thinking of it.
Yeah.
You remember the conversation we had on, the struggle to develop young quarterbacks?
Yes, sir.
We had a great conversation there, and I said, I think virtual reality is I think that you're going to use technology to try and make up for the lack of time these guys are getting on the field. And Jaden Daniels, he went through that at LSU and really used that virtual reality system, and he credits it a lot with his growth and development over the last year. there are quarterbacks in the NFL that I was made aware of today that are going to be making their way down to Baton Rouge to get their hands on this technology to be able to do the exact same thing that we were discussing in terms of being able to get reps even when you're not on the field.
And that's the point, of trying to figure out how to get these young kids that are needing reps, decision-making reps, actual real deal, breaking a sweat. How do you get them up to speed? I mean, with Penix going to be sitting there, how can he stay sharp and get the pro ready, needing to get adjusted to the speed of the game type readiness? All these guys that get pushed up the draft or get pushed up into starting positions in the NFL. How do you do it? And just real quick, tell that story you told about you heard an actual bona fide backup quarterback in the NFL, what he has to do because he knew he wasn't getting the opportunities that he needed to stay sharp. Go ahead.
He would go through the day with his team, get through practice where he would be, doing some scout team stuff, but it's a different offense every week. He's not getting a chance to learn and grow and throw the routes and look at the combinations of routes he would be running in this particular offense. Just wasn't getting any work or any reps, and quite honestly, not even getting the number of throws that he would need. So practice would end. He would finish up his day at the facility, and then he had it set up at a junior college, across town with his, with a private quarterback coach, with a collection of receivers, which I'd assume are junior college kids or high school kids, whoever he could get out there. And they would basically kind of go through. He would have the game plan for the week for the for the real offense, for the number one offense, and he would kind of just run through it on air. There's no defense out there, but get a chance to just run through things on air just to get his throws in, to get his work in, to have them looking at his mechanics to make sure he's staying sharp in that regard. But he had to basically outsource his development.
It just gobsmacks me in the NFL where there's revenue coming out of every stream possible. That an actual bona fide backup quarterback in the NFL feels the need to have to take it into his own hands and create his own mini camp after work. It's just nuts, But Daniel Jeremiah here on the Rich Eisen Show. I've got Howie Roseman coming up in about 40 minutes. What'd you think of his draft, DJ?
I loved it. It's funny because a lot of times, people talk about draft grades and how you view different classes. It's just interesting. A lot of people that I've had ties to in terms of who I've worked with, I'm sure that there's things that have rubbed off on me over the years in terms of style of player that I like and what I believe in, because I feel like a lot of times it's those guys that when I look back, oh man, they nailed it every year. They nailed it. Because there's certain people you see players the same as. So I've worked there and I've known Howie for a long time, and I think we have some core beliefs that we share there. But when you have a problem on your team, I believe that full resources and do whatever you have to do. Solve the biggest problem. Don't solve a little bit of this problem, a little bit of that problem. Identify what your biggest weakness is and attack it with ferocity. And that was their secondary, and they went out and they got two of the top four corners in the draft. So I thought it was outstanding. Yeah,
and you see the rest of their draft and going ahead and getting Jeremiah Trotter's kid. By the way, 54 is available for him to wear.
Love that. I love that. Will Shipley's going to be a nice compliment to Saquon Barkley. How about that backfield?
Right. I mean, that's and they already have Boston Scott to kill the Giants. So there's that. What'd you make of the Cowboys draft, Daniel?
Yeah, I was a little surprised when they ended up trading back. I thought they would take Graham Barton and kind of just solve that position right then and there as someone who'd come in and play center. But I like Guyton too as a tackle who's got an unbelievable size and athleticism and tools to work with there. So they went out and added him to the mix. I know we were kicking around the idea of what they were doing at running back. They brought Zeke back. Usually I'm pretty strong in my belief that I want fresh young legs at the running back position, and they have some solid backs already on their roster. They go out and get Zeke. I thought there were upgrades all throughout the draft, even into the last round. I thought there was a back there that I really liked out of Memphis. So they ended up deciding to stick with what they have on hand, and that's part of the look, that's part of the challenge. Is you got to not only evaluate the draft class every year, but you have to be able to evaluate that draft class compared to what you have on your roster. And so, hey, that's what they did. They looked at their group and felt like there was a cutoff and to a point where, hey, we like the guys that we have already on the roster better than what's available. So we'll see. We'll see how that all works out.
All right, last one for you, Daniel. And not to turn you into an information man, but you get so many people hitting you up and telling you this and telling you that, and I don't know what you're willing to share. What are you hearing coming out of the draft about why there were no trades at the top? Why was there only that one for the Jets and the Vikings to move up to 10? What did you hear that you might be willing to share about how many were trying and why it didn't happen? Anything like that, Daniel?
Well, I know there was a lot of action at 3. So Drake Maye was a big target with Minnesota and the Giants, and I know something had been said about Elliott Wolf saying he didn't get the offer that they thought was worth it. Well, there was no offer that was worth it because from what I was told, they were monumental packages put together to go up there for the 3rd pick. So that turned out that pick just simply wasn't for sale. So that wasn't a lack of commitment from those teams. There were very, 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 very strong offers put forth there. So you get the top 3 picks. Once those didn't change, I felt like with Minnesota, the belief in the 2 quarterbacks that were going to be remaining there, and I'll put Bo Nix off to the side, but I think between J.J. McCarthy and Penix, that the Minnesota Vikings were comfortable with either one. And so they were just going to ride that out. And then once you saw Penix go off the board, then they just paid the, I guess it's like when you're, I've never done this, Rich, but when you play blackjack, insurance.
That's right.
They decided just take the insurance and get up one spot to make sure that they got him. But that was the, that was the game right there.
You use the word very 3 times. So you're talking, I would imagine, multiple ones to move up to 3. Like what are you willing to share about what you heard on those?
I mean, I won't go too far into it, but yeah, this wasn't a collection of day 2 picks. Let's put it that way. It was very, very strong.
And the Patriots just said, no, we got our guy. And that's it.
Nope.
Because they handed in that pick right away. Like we were barely done talking about Drake Maye once around the table, and it's all of a sudden pick is in. Like the Patriots didn't stick and stay too deep into their clock on Thursday night.
No, I mean, I guess they just kind of wanted to see. In some ways, it can be affirming, when you have a guy that you feel like you want to pick and you still have the open for business sign out on the front door. When you see the offers for that pick that come in some ways, it can kind of embolden your belief in the player that, hey, we're not the only ones that think this guy's pretty good.
Right.
Apparently, there's some other people that feel the same way.
You're the best, DJ. Loved it. Love hanging with you. Great to see your son who was there as well. Great to hang out. It's just, you're so awesome at it. You really are. You know your stuff, and you do it in such a way with such a style and such a grace and such a sense of humor that it's perfect. It strikes the best tone, and I can't thank you. I'm over the moon when I get to work with you. So thanks again, Daniel.
Well, I feel the exact same way about you, as you know, and I feel like every year it just gets better. It's more fun. We've got such great chemistry with our group up there, and we've got a great quarterback. So appreciate you, buddy.
Right back at you, DJ. That's Move the Sticks. Check out his podcast with Bucky Brooks right as soon as you are done with this show, and check out everything he's got to say about the draft. That's Daniel Jeremiah right here on the Rich Eisen. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.